10-year-old Marcus Johnson was a boy with big dreams and an even bigger heart. He lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of Chicago with his dad, Derek, who worked incredibly hard to give him the best life possible. Despite their modest lifestyle, Marcus always felt like the luckiest kid in the world because of how much love and care his father poured into everything he did for him. Marcus had been counting down the days until this moment for months. His father, Derek Johnson, owned Skylink Airlines, a company that started as a tiny regional carrier but grew into one of the most respected names in aviation. Though Derek worked long hours, he made sure to spend quality time with Marcus whenever he could. And today, Derek had planned something truly special: a trip to Paris so Marcus could visit his grandmother. The idea came after Marcus learned about the Eiffel Tower during a school lesson. He couldn't stop talking about it. "Dad," he said one evening over dinner, "I want to see the Eiffel Tower more than anything else in the whole wide world." Derek smiled, ruffled his son's hair, and replied, "Well, maybe we can make that happen someday." Little did Marcus know that someday would come sooner than expected. On the morning of the flight, Marcus woke up before sunrise, too excited to sleep any longer. He jumped out of bed, put on his favorite blue sweater and jeans, and carefully packed his backpack with snacks, a coloring book, and his lucky baseball cap. As he looked at himself in the mirror, he grinned widely, imagining all the amazing things he'd get to see in Paris: the towering Eiffel Tower, the beautiful streets filled with cafes, and of course, his loving grandmother waiting to greet him with open arms. When Derek picked him up from his room, he handed Marcus a neatly folded piece of paper. "Here's your ticket, champ," he said proudly. Marcus took it gently, feeling its weight in his hands. It wasn't just a ticket, it was a golden pass to adventure. For the first time in his young life, he was going to travel overseas, and not just anywhere. It was Paris. The ride to the airport was filled with laughter and excitement. Derek pointed out landmarks along the way and told Marcus stories about his own travels when he was younger. "You're going to have the best time ever," Derek promised. "And don't forget, if you need anything while you're there, Grandma will take good care of you." At O'Hare International Airport, Marcus marveled at the bustling energy around him. People rushed past with suitcases rolling behind them, announcements echoed through the terminals, and the smell of coffee wafted through the air. Everything felt so alive, so full of possibilities. Hand in hand, Derek led Marcus to the check-in counter, where they were greeted by friendly staff members who recognized Derek right away. "Mr. Johnson, heading somewhere fun?" one of the agents asked cheerfully. "We sure are," Derek replied with a wink. "My boy here is off to Paris to visit his grandma." After checking in their bags, Derek knelt down to Marcus's level and gave him a serious look. "Now listen, Marcus. This is your first international flight, so I want you to be brave and enjoy every second of it. But remember, always stay polite, follow instructions, and keep your ticket safe. Got it?" Marcus nodded eagerly, clutching the ticket tighter than ever. "I won't lose it, Dad, I promise." With a final hug and some last-minute reminders, Derek waved goodbye as Marcus headed toward the security checkpoint. Watching his son disappear into the crowd, Derek felt a mix of pride and nostalgia. He remembered his own childhood, growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce. Back then, traveling abroad seemed like a distant dream. Now, seeing Marcus take off on such an incredible journey filled him with immense gratitude. As Marcus approached the gate, his heart raced with anticipation. He imagined stepping onto the plane, looking out the window as the city shrank below him, and finally arriving in Paris to explore a whole new world. Nothing could dampen his spirits, not even the slight pang of nervousness that came with being alone for the first time. But little did Marcus know, his dream trip was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would test his courage and teach him lessons far beyond what he'd find in a textbook or classroom. As Marcus approached the gate, his heart raced with excitement. He clutched his ticket tightly in one hand and held onto his backpack strap with the other. The line moved slowly, but Marcus didn't mind. He was too busy imagining what it would feel like to sit on the plane and look out the window as the city disappeared below him. When it was finally his turn to step up to the desk, Marcus took a deep breath and handed over his ticket to the flight attendant stationed there. Her name tag read *Patricia*, and she wore a crisp uniform that made her look very professional. At first glance, Marcus thought she seemed nice enough. However, As soon as Patricia looked down at his ticket, her expression changed. She frowned deeply, examining the paper as though it were counterfeit. Then, without even looking directly at Marcus, she asked sharply, "Where did you get this?" Caught off guard by her tone, Marcus stammered, "Oh, my dad gave it to me. It's real. We checked in already." Patricia raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? Because I've never seen a ticket like this for a child flying first class. Are you sure this isn't fake? Kids your age don't usually fly solo in premium cabins." Marcus blinked, confused. Was she accusing him of lying? His cheeks flushed red as he tried to explain again. No, it's real. My dad works at Skylink Airlines. He got it from me. Please, I'm supposed to go to Paris." But Patricia wasn't listening anymore. She shook her head dismissively, muttering under her breath about scammers and fraudulent tickets. Before Marcus could say another word, she grabbed the ticket out of his hand and tore it into pieces right in front of him. "Nope," she said coldly, tossing the shredded remains onto the counter. "You can't board without proper documentation. Next." Marcus froze, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. For a moment, he couldn't believe what had just happened. Had she really destroyed his ticket? Tears welled up in his eyes as shame washed over him. The other passengers waiting in line stared awkwardly, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Some avoided eye contact altogether, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Feeling humiliated and defeated, Marcus stepped aside, clutching his backpack tightly against his chest. He wanted to scream, to tell everyone that his ticket asterisk was asterisk real and that Patricia had made a huge mistake. But instead, tears streamed down his face as he struggled to hold back sobs. How could this happen? Why wouldn't anyone believe him? A few feet away, an older woman who had been watching the scene unfold approached Marcus hesitantly. "Are you okay, sweetie?" she asked softly, kneeling down to his level. Marcus sniffled, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "I was going to Paris to see my grandma," he whispered, his voice trembling. "But she tore up my ticket. She said it wasn't real." The woman's eyes widened in disbelief. "That doesn't sound right. Did you check in earlier?" "Yes." Marcus nodded quickly, desperate for someone to understand. "My dad helped me. He works at Skylink Airlines. He gave me the ticket." Hearing this, the woman's expression softened further. Placing a comforting hand on Marcus's shoulder, she said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Let's figure this out together." With renewed determination, Marcus pulled out the smartwatch his dad had given him for emergencies. Though his hands shook slightly, he managed Edric's zone. Marcus's fingers trembled as he scrolled through the contacts on his smartwatch. He knew his dad would know what to do. He always did. With a shaky breath, Marcus pressed the call button and held the watch up to his ear. After 2 rings, Derek's voice came through, warm and cheerful. "Hey, champ. How's it going? Are you all set to board?" At the sound of his father's voice, Marcus felt a wave of relief, but also sadness. His tears started flowing again, and he couldn't stop them. "Dad," he choked out, his voice cracking. Derek's tone immediately shifted from cheerful to serious. "Marcus, what's wrong? Buddy, are you okay?" For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then Derek's voice grew firm, though still calm. "Wait. What do you mean she tore up your ticket? Did you check in properly with your name?" "Yes, Dad. We did everything right." Marcus cried, frustration mixing with his sadness. "She just didn't believe me. She said I couldn't fly first class because kids like me don't do that." Derek's jaw tightened as anger flared within him. Though he wanted to rush to the airport immediately, he forced himself to stay composed for Marcus's sake. Taking a deep breath, he spoke gently into the phone. "All right, Marcus, listen carefully. You've done nothing wrong. Okay? Stay where you are. I'm coming to get you. Don't move, and try not to worry. Everything will be fine." Hearing his dad's reassuring words, Marcus nodded, even though Derek couldn't see him. "Okay, Dad," he whispered, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. Before hanging up, Derek added firmly, "And remember, no matter what happens, you're stronger than this. People make mistakes sometimes, but we handle things the right way. Got it?" Marcus nodded again, feeling a little braver. "Got it, Dad." As soon as the call ended, Derek grabbed his car keys and bolted out of his office. His mind raced with questions and emotions. How could someone working for his Asterisk airline, treat his son so unfairly? Didn't they recognize his last name when checking in? Or worse, had their assumptions blinded them to the truth? By the time Derek reached the highway, his knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. He called the airport manager, a man named Mr. Carter, who answered almost instantly. "Carter, this is Derek Johnson. There's been an issue at Gate 17 involving my son, Marcus. A flight attendant refused to let him board and destroyed his ticket. I need you to address this immediately." Mr. Carter sounded shocked. "Your son? At Skylink?" "Sir, I had no idea." "That's exactly the problem," Derek interrupted sharply. "I'm on my way now. Make sure everyone knows who I am before I arrive." As Derek sped toward the airport, Marcus sat on a nearby bench, trying to compose himself. The kind older woman who had comforted him earlier stayed by his side, offering words of encouragement. "Your dad sounds like a great man," she said softly. "You'll take care of this, sweetheart. Just wait and see." Though Marcus appreciated her kindness, doubt still lingered in his mind. What if Patricia didn't apologize? What if other people kept treating him unfairly? These thoughts weighed heavily on him, but he reminded himself of his dad's advice. Stay strong, Back at the gate, news of the incident began spreading quickly among the staff. Patricia overheard whispers about the CEO's son and suddenly realized the gravity of her mistake. Panic set in as she frantically searched for Marcus, hoping to apologize and fix the situation before it got worse. When she finally spotted him sitting on the bench with the older woman, Patricia approached cautiously. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling. "Is everything all right here?" The older woman gave her a sharp look. "You're the one who caused all this trouble, aren't you? Tearing up a child's ticket without even verifying it. That's unacceptable." Patricia looked down, shamefaced. I didn't realize. I thought it was fake. I'm so sorry." Before Marcus could respond, security guards appeared, having been alerted by Mr. Carter. They escorted Patricia away from the gate, leaving her visibly shaken. Passengers nearby whispered among themselves, some expressing outrage over how Marcus had been treated. Minutes later, Derek arrived at the terminal, striding purposefully toward Gate 17. His presence commanded attention. Everyone turned to look as he walked past. When he saw Marcus sitting on the bench, tears still glistening in his eyes, Derek's heart broke, but his resolve hardened. Kneeling beside his son, Derek pulled Marcus into a tight hug. "I'm here now, buddy. It's going to be okay." Marcus clung to his dad, feeling safe again. For the first time since the incident, he allowed himself to hope that justice would prevail, and that his dream trip to Paris might not be lost after all. Derek Johnson stood tall, his presence commanding respect as he knelt beside Marcus. He wiped away his son's tears with a gentle hand and pulled him close for another reassuring hug. "It's all right now, Marcus," Derek said softly, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "We'll fix this together." As passengers nearby watched silently, some whispered among themselves, recognizing Derek immediately. "Isn't that the CEO of Skylink?" One man murmured to his companion. Another nodded, her eyes wide with disbelief. "That boy is his son. Oh my goodness." Derek ignored the murmurs, focusing instead on Marcus. After making sure his son was calm enough to speak, he turned to address the crowd gathered around them. With a calm but firm tone, he began explaining what had happened, not just for Marcus's sake, but for everyone present. "I want to thank you all for witnessing this unfortunate situation," Derek said, his gaze sweeping across the group. "My son, Marcus, was treated unfairly at this gate today simply because someone made assumptions about him based on how he looks or where they think he belongs. This isn't just about Skylink Airlines. It's about something much bigger. It's about systemic biases that still exist in our society, even within industries meant to serve everyone equally." His words resonated deeply with many of the passengers. Some nodded in agreement, while others looked down, reflecting on their own experiences or privileges. A young woman with 2 children of her own stepped forward timidly. "Sir, I saw what happened," she said, addressing Derek directly. "The way that flight attendant spoke to your son, it wasn't right. She didn't give him a chance to explain himself. "I'm so sorry this happened." Derek gave her a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for speaking up. That means a lot. But let me be clear, this isn't about punishing one person. It's about learning from mistakes and ensuring this never happens again." By now, airport staff had gathered near the gate, including Mr. Carter, the airport manager, who approached Derek nervously. "Mr. Johnson, I can't apologize enough for what occurred here today. We're going to take immediate action to prevent anything like this from happening again." Derek nodded, though his expression remained serious. "Good, because if we don't learn from incidents like these, nothing changes. Now, tell me, where is Patricia?" Mr. Carter hesitated before answering. "She's been taken aside for questioning. If you'd like, we can terminate her employment immediately." But Derek shook his head firmly. "No, firing her won't solve the problem. What she needs, and what everyone here needs, is education. Sensitivity training, workshops on unconscious bias, and better protocols for handling situations like this. Starting today, I want mandatory training implemented across all Skylink employees. And Patricia, assign her to work closely with our diversity committee. Let her learn firsthand how to treat people with respect and fairness." The crowd erupted into quiet applause, impressed by Derek's leadership and compassion. Even Marcus looked up at his dad with admiration shining in his eyes. Once the initial shock settled, Derek turned back to Marcus and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You handled yourself well today, buddy. Even when things got tough, you stayed strong. That takes real courage." Marcus smiled faintly, feeling a sense of pride replace the earlier humiliation. "Thanks, Dad, but am I still going to Paris?" Derek chuckled softly. "Of course you are. Nothing's stopping you now." He signaled to a nearby supervisor, who quickly produced a new boarding pass for Marcus. Handing it to him, Derek added, "Here's your ticket, champ. This time, no one's tearing it up." As Marcus took the fresh ticket, relief washed over him. For the first time since arriving at the gate, he felt truly happy again. The ordeal had been painful, but seeing his dad stand up for him, and for others facing similar challenges, made him realize the importance of standing strong against injustice. Before heading toward the plane, Derek addressed the crowd one last time. "Thank you all for your patience and understanding. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels welcome, no matter who they are or where they come from. Have a safe flight." With that, Derek walked Marcus to the boarding area, holding his hand tightly. As they passed through the gate, the other passengers broke into spontaneous applause, cheering for Marcus and his father. For Marcus, the moment was bittersweet, but overwhelmingly hopeful. His dream trip to Paris was finally back on track, and he knew that this experience would stay with him forever, not as a memory of pain, but as a lesson in resilience, empathy, and the power of doing what's right. As Marcus and Derek walked toward the boarding area, the weight of the day's events lingered in the air. Though Marcus clutched his new ticket tightly, his mind was still replaying the earlier scene at the gate. He couldn't shake the image of Patricia tearing up his original ticket, or the way some passengers had stared at him with pity, or worse, indifference. It wasn't just the act itself that stunned, it was the feeling of being dismissed, as if he didn't belong there. Derek noticed the distant look on his son's face and slowed his pace. Kneeling down to Marcus's level once again, he placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're thinking about what happened back there, aren't you?" Marcus hesitated before nodding. "Yeah. Dad, why did she do that? Why didn't she believe me?" Derek sighed, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes, people make assumptions based on how someone looks, talks, or acts. They don't take the time to see the whole picture. That's not your fault, it's theirs. But the important thing is how we respond when things like this happen." Marcus frowned slightly. "So, what are you going to do about Patricia?" Derek smiled faintly. "Well, I could fire her right now. She made a big mistake, and she hurt you. But firing her won't teach her, or anyone else, how to be better. Instead, I'm giving her a chance to learn from this. Sometimes, second chances can change people for the better." Marcus tilted his head thoughtfully. "Do you think she'll really change?" "I hope so," Derek replied honestly. "But whether she does or not, what matters most is that we showed her kindness and understanding. Being a leader means helping others grow, even when they've done wrong. And one day, Maybe she'll treat someone else the way she should have treated you. At that moment, a flight attendant approached them with a warm smile. Unlike Patricia, this woman radiated kindness and professionalism. "Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson." She greeted Derek respectfully before turning her attention to Marcus. "And you must be Marcus. Welcome aboard. We're so excited to have you flying with us today." Marcus managed a small smile, though he still felt a bit wary. Sensing his hesitation, the flight attendant knelt down to meet his gaze. "I promise you, sweetie, nothing like that will happen again. You're going to have an amazing trip to Paris." Her words seemed genuine, and Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay. Thank you." As they boarded the plane, Derek guided Marcus to his seat in first class. The cabin was luxurious, with plush seats, soft lighting, and friendly staff ready to assist passengers. Marcus marveled at the surroundings, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the lesson his dad had shared moments ago. Second chances, kindness, leadership. These were big ideas for a 10-year-old, but Marcus understood their importance deep down. Once they were settled, Derek leaned closer to Marcus. "Remember something, buddy. Life isn't always fair. People might judge you or treat you unfairly because of things you can't control. But don't let their actions define who you are. You choose how to respond, with anger or with grace. And sometimes, showing compassion is the strongest thing you can do." Marcus looked up at his dad, admiration shining in his eyes. "Like how you gave Patricia another chance." "Exactly," Derek said with a proud smile. "Being strong doesn't mean fighting back every time someone hurts you. Sometimes it means rising above and teaching them a better way. That's what real leadership is all about." Before leaving the plane, Derek hugged Marcus tightly. "Now go enjoy your adventure. Grandma's waiting for you, and I know she's going to love hearing this story." As Derek stepped off the plane, Marcus took a deep breath and gazed out the window. The sun was setting, casting golden hues across the runway. Passengers around him chatted excitedly, and the hum of engines signaled the start of their journey. For the first time since the ordeal began, Marcus felt truly at peace. Yes, the day had been difficult, but it had also taught him valuable lessons about fairness, forgiveness, and standing up for what's right. As the plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the sky, Marcus realized that this trip wasn't just about seeing the Eiffel Tower anymore. It was about becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. A boy learning to navigate a world that wasn't always kind, but one where he could still make a difference. And as the city lights faded beneath the clouds, Marcus whispered to himself, "I'm going to be okay." Hours after the plane took off, Patricia sat alone in a quiet office at the airport, her hands trembling as she replayed the events of the day. She had never felt so ashamed in her life. What had started as a routine check at the gate had spiraled into something far worse, a mistake that could cost her not just her job but her dignity. The image of Marcus's tear-streaked face haunted her, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw the boy's crushed expression when she tore up his ticket. When Mr. Carter entered the room, Patricia stood abruptly, her voice shaky. "Sir, I didn't know it was his son, if I'd known." Mr. Carter held up a hand to stop her. "Patricia, this isn't about who his father is. It's about how you treated a child, a passenger who trusted us to get him safely to his destination. You judged him unfairly based on assumptions, and that's unacceptable." Patricia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, sir. I messed up. I let my biases cloud my judgment, and now I've hurt someone. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Mr. Carter softened slightly. "Derek Johnson has decided against firing you. Instead, he wants you to undergo sensitivity training and work closely with our diversity committee. This is your chance to learn from this experience and grow, not just for yourself, but for the sake of our passengers and staff." Patricia wiped her tears, nodding earnestly. "Thank you, sir. I promise I'll change. I don't want anyone else to feel the way Marcus must have felt today." Meanwhile, high above the clouds, Marcus was adjusting to life aboard the luxurious first-class cabin. The flight attendants were attentive and kind, bringing him snacks, drinks, and even a warm blanket. One of them, a cheerful woman named Lisa, knelt beside him and asked if there was anything special he'd like during the flight. "Actually," Marcus said shyly, "can I see the cockpit? My dad told me pilots have really cool jobs." Lisa smiled warmly. "Of course. Let me check with the captain." A few minutes later, Marcus found himself standing in the cockpit, marveling at the array of buttons, switches, and screens. The co-pilot greeted him warmly and explained how the plane worked, pointing out the controls used for takeoff, landing, and navigation. For a moment, Marcus forgot all about the earlier incident. His excitement bubbled over as he peppered the crew with questions, his curiosity insatiable. Back in his seat, Marcus reflected on the stark contrast between the kindness he was experiencing now and the harshness he faced earlier. He thought about what his dad had said, that second chances were important, and that people could change if given the opportunity. Though he still felt hurt by Patricia's actions, he began to wonder if she truly regretted what she'd done. As the hours passed, Marcus drifted off to sleep, dreaming of Paris and the adventures awaiting him. When he woke up, the plane was beginning its descent, and the sun was rising over the horizon. Through the window, he caught his first glimpse of the City of Lights, the Eiffel Tower standing tall against the morning sky. At the airport in Paris, Marcus's grandmother waited anxiously at arrivals. When she finally spotted him walking through the terminal, her face lit up with joy. "Marcus," she exclaimed, pulling him into a tight hug. "Grandma." Marcus beamed, hugging her back just as fiercely. On the ride home, Marcus couldn't wait to tell her everything that had happened, from the excitement of boarding the plane to the painful encounter at the gate and the lessons his dad had taught him along the way. His grandmother listened intently, her expression shifting from anger to pride as he recounted the story. "You handled all of that so bravely," she said, patting his hand. "Your dad is right. Sometimes, showing compassion is the strongest thing you can do. And remember, no matter what happens, you belong wherever you choose to go." By the time they reached her apartment, Marcus felt lighter, as though sharing his story had helped him process the emotions swirling inside him. Looking out the window at the bustling streets of Paris, he realized that while the day's events had been challenging, they had also shaped him in ways he hadn't expected. He thought about Patricia, wondering if she would truly change. He hoped she would, because everyone deserved a second chance, even those who made mistakes. And as he gazed at the Eiffel Tower glowing in the distance, Marcus knew one thing for certain. This trip wasn't just about seeing new places. It was about growing stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. And maybe, just maybe, he learned a little bit about leadership too. By the time Marcus stepped off the plane in Paris, he felt like a different person. The weight of the earlier incident still lingered faintly, but it no longer crushed him. Instead, it had transformed into something else. A quiet resolve to face life's challenges with courage and grace. As he walked through the bustling terminal, his grandmother's warm embrace erased any lingering sadness, filling him with love and comfort. "Welcome to Paris, my sweet boy," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. "I've been waiting for this day for so long." Marcus grinned, holding onto her tightly. "Me too, Grandma. I can't wait to see everything. The Eiffel Tower, the streets, the food, everything." His grandmother chuckled, patting his back. "Well, we'll start slow. First, let's grab some breakfast at that little cafe near my apartment. Then, I'll show you around the neighborhood before we tackle the big sights." As they made their way out of the airport, Marcus couldn't help but feel proud of himself. He had faced an unfair situation head-on, leaned on his dad for support, and emerged stronger because of it. Even though Patricia's actions had hurt him deeply, Marcus found solace in knowing that his dad had handled the situation with dignity and wisdom. It wasn't just about punishing someone, it was about teaching them how to be better. The next few days were nothing short of magical. His grandmother took him all over Paris, introducing him to its beauty and charm. They strolled along the Seine River, visited art museums filled with masterpieces, and wandered through quaint cobblestone streets lined with flower stalls and bakeries. Every morning, they started their day with fresh croissants and hot chocolate, savoring each bite as they planned their adventures ahead. But the highlight of the trip came when they finally reached the Eiffel Tower. Standing beneath its towering iron structure, Marcus felt awe wash over him. He tilted his head back, trying to take in its full height, but it seemed to stretch endlessly toward the sky. "It's even bigger than I imagined," Marcus whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. His grandmother smiled, snapping photos as he posed beside the monument. "It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And now, you're here to experience it yourself." Later that evening, as they sat on a nearby bench watching the tower sparkle with golden lights, Marcus turned to his grandmother. You know, Grandma, I thought coming here would just be fun. But now I realize it's more than that. Everything I've seen, everything I've learned, it feels like I'm growing up a little bit. She nodded thoughtfully. Travel has a way of doing that. It opens your eyes to new perspectives and helps you understand the world and yourself better. You've already shown so much strength this week, Marcus. I'm so proud of you. Her words warmed his heart, reminding him of the lessons his dad had shared. Life wasn't always fair, but how you responded to its challenges mattered most. Forgiveness, empathy, and resilience weren't just abstract ideas. They were tools for navigating the ups and downs of life. On their last night in Paris, Marcus wrote a letter to his dad. Sitting at his grandmother's kitchen table, he carefully chose his words, wanting to express everything he'd felt during the trip. Dear Dad, he began, thank you for sending me to Paris. It was the best trip ever, even though it didn't start out that way. I learned so much, not just about Paris, but about being brave and kind, even when things get tough. I hope Patricia learns from her mistake, because everyone deserves a second chance. I'm really proud of how you handled everything, and I want to be like you when I grow up. Love, Marcus. When he sealed the envelope and handed it to his grandmother to mail, Marcus felt a sense of closure. The trip had been about more than sightseeing. It had been about growth, understanding, and finding strength in adversity. As he boarded the plane back home, Marcus carried those lessons with him. Though the journey had tested him in ways he hadn't expected, it had also given him gifts he would cherish forever. Confidence, compassion, and a deeper appreciation for the power of forgiveness. And as the plane soared into the sky, leaving Paris behind, Marcus whispered to himself, this is just the beginning. Back in Chicago, Derek Johnson returned to work with renewed determination. The incident at the airport had opened his eyes to a painful truth. Despite all the progress Skylink Airlines had made over the years, there were still cracks in the foundation. Prejudice and bias weren't problems that could be solved overnight. They required constant effort, education, and accountability. And as the CEO, Derek knew it was his responsibility to lead by example. The first thing he did was call an emergency meeting with his executive team. Sitting at the head of the conference table, Derek addressed the group with a calm but firm tone. What happened to Marcus wasn't just a personal issue. It's a reflection of systemic problems that we need to address within our company. We pride ourselves on being inclusive and welcoming, but clearly, we're falling short in some areas. It's time to take action. Derek outlined a series of sweeping changes designed to create a more equitable environment for both employees and passengers. Mandatory workshops on unconscious bias would be implemented across all levels of the organization. A new hotline was set up for reporting unfair treatment or discrimination anonymously. Flyers and digital reminders about diversity and inclusion were placed throughout airports and planes, reinforcing the message that everyone deserved respect, regardless of their background. Patricia, meanwhile, began attending her first sensitivity training session. At first, she felt defensive, unsure if she belonged in a room full of people discussing privilege and prejudice. But as the facilitator shared stories of real-life experiences, stories similar to Marcus's, Patricia realized how much she had to learn. She started taking notes, asking questions, and reflecting on her own behavior. By the end of the session, tears streamed down her face as she vowed to do better, not just for herself, but for others who might face the same kind of judgment she had shown Marcus. For Marcus, returning home felt like stepping into a new chapter of his life. He hugged his dad tightly, recounting every detail of his trip to Paris, the sights, the food, the lessons he'd learned. When he handed over the letter he'd written, Derek read it silently, his eyes glistening with pride. Marcus, he said softly, pulling his son close, you've grown so much during this trip. I'm proud of you, not just for handling everything with such grace, but for understanding why forgiveness and empathy are so important. Marcus smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Though the ordeal at the gate had been painful, it had taught him invaluable lessons about resilience and leadership. He no longer saw himself as just a 10-year-old boy. He saw himself as someone capable of making a difference in the world. In the months that followed, Skylink Airlines became a model for inclusivity and fairness in the aviation industry. Passengers noticed the shift immediately. Flight attendants greeted them with genuine smiles. Staff members went out of their way to assist travelers, and posters celebrating diversity adorned every terminal. Even Patricia, who worked tirelessly to prove she had changed, earned back the trust of her colleagues and passengers alike. As for Marcus, the experience stayed with him long after his trip to Paris ended. He began speaking up more often when he saw injustice, whether it was standing up for a classmate being teased at school or reminding his friends to treat everyone with kindness. His dream of becoming a leader like his dad grew stronger each day, fueled by the belief that even small actions could create big changes. Years later, when Marcus graduated from college and joined Skylake Airlines as part of its leadership team, he carried those lessons with him. During his first speech as a senior executive, he reflected on the day his ticket was torn up and how it shaped the person he had become. That moment taught me something powerful, Marcus told the audience. It taught me that adversity can either break us or make us stronger. It taught me the importance of forgiveness, empathy, and standing up for what's right. And most importantly, it taught me that true leadership isn't about wielding power. It's about using your influence to lift others up. As applause filled the room, Derek watched his son with tears in his eyes. He knew Marcus would continue the legacy of change they had started together, a legacy built on courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that everyone deserved to belong. And somewhere in the crowd, Patricia listened intently, smiling through her own tears. She had come a long way since that fateful day at the gate, and she owed it all to the boy who had inspired her to be better. The journey wasn't perfect, but it was proof that growth was possible and that even the hardest moments could lead to brighter futures.